Okay, here we go again. Before we begin, click like and subscribe. And yeah, let's get going again. Alex, Damian, and me. Last time we had a great session. With Damian's leadership, we managed to model on the high level part of our release process, which would be so much better and much more automated if we would have a tool that could connect all those dots together. And now we want to figure out what to do next. So just to repeat, so there is there is a package that we have which is called Toolbox. It's available in every job in SAM for CI, and it's composed of number of things, but mainly couple of CLI tools. And what we modeled is a release pipeline for one of those tools. So when is a CLI, when is the name of the tool. When it gets updated, it builds a release on GitHub. Based on that, there is a toolbox, which is another project, which has a number of those in, and the version of when is bumped there. And then that toolbox gets released, and from there on, we can include that new toolbox in SaaS and on-prem and other. But yeah, definitely very nice and very automated, nicely automated flow. And now the question is how to continue. I mean, to say my kind of overwhelming impression on the last meeting was, oh man, this is so good. I really wish we had this and we can try this out and test it and understand it better. And I was thinking how we could build that with existing software and so on. So that's one line of thought. The other one, just to mention where we could go, we could potentially model this further, this continuous delivery flow that would be useful for us, including the elements of releasing to SaaS and on-prem and all of that. I mean, those ideas in the realm of like playing with this, what would be great for us to have, and we can learn from that. But that is that in building a POC in some way. There are definitely other options, such as potentially figuring out the events and going in depth. So we can kind of go broader or go in depth with designing the tool. But yeah, maybe enough said from my side. I'm curious to see what you guys think.
Well, from my point of view, right now we have this super long chain, and it's not 100%. The approach is clear, but there are a lot of details that are important but not yet mapped out. So mapping out the whole process of releasing Toolbox and how it would work with different parameters. What if we have both of these appear at the same time? How do you approve stuff in queue? What are some other checks? How do we roll this out? And how would this look like after several versions? And how do you see history? Do we merge some stages, or how are stages triggered if it's not triggered at the beginning when you change artifact CLI or whatever, but instead toolbox? Like mapping those out and making sure that this is super clear to us on our use case first, and then continuing from there and poking holes in that design is something that would make sense to me, because use case is very good. You have 3 different components that are technically 3 different repositories, and you have
How do you mean three? You mean like when CLI, then toolbox, then
yes, technically then it's 4, and there is also component number 4, which is agent CLI, that on the release of new toolbox needs to
Yeah,
be
I think
updated,
that one is
right?
parallel with SAS.
Yeah, so it's a very good use case, and I think that
Yeah.
we mapped out just this one path, which is when CLI gets updated and toolbox gets new version of
Yeah.
toolbox gets released but not deployed. So I feel like
Yeah.
we can continue working on this, but maybe if there's I feel like we found the key recipe, and we have understanding on how this would work, but now is the time to actually map it out and see if we missed something. But if there are some key components that we're still unsure of, then it would be better to discuss them, right? But
Yeah. Damian, on your side?
Yes, I would agree with Alex. It would be good to like broaden this up a bit and then maybe focus on few key parts in that flow. Yeah, the one thing that is like voting against this broadening out the scope, I'm not completely clear on our process currently. Much further on that SaaS side, I have like some general like ideas, but like for that we would need someone from platform team to like clear it up first, or like we can go from like
for deployment,
yeah. So or we can go from that like zoom out picture that I have there.
Yeah. But I mean, last time we to some extent we were dealing with with inputs and outputs, but it was kind of more of the burden that we're carrying. We were not paying like a great level of attention to that. So I mean, one approach that we could take is that we just reuse what we made last time, but delete those inputs and what are inputs, what are the outputs. Make it like more high level. We have these boxes and description of what's happening in each stage as a box, but in really zoomed out view. So it would be easier to see and grasp what's going on, and it would be also easier to extend with these. Okay, let's include also artifact CLI and other ones and agent toolbox update, and all of those components. I just don't think that we are getting much of the value getting into some details that we are just not ready yet to talk about. So yeah, I agree with what you guys are proposing. In terms of next steps. There is already quite a lot.
Yeah.
So, quick question. These 4, let's call this stage 1, stage 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Any drawbacks to redrawing these as 8 separate boxes being connected and then description below them, what's happening in each?
I wanted to ask maybe question for Damian. So let's imagine we had this feature. Would you want to see all these stages as a separate things?
Not most of the time, probably. But there are cases like, can you maybe zoom in a bit more?
Sure.
Yeah, so there are two cases where I see like why I would want to see like a specific box, right? One is when something goes wrong in a specific box, and then you need to like dig deeper what exactly got wrong. And the another one would be if one of these can be triggered outside of this flow. So if something can jump up straight into, let's say, update toolbox or something else.
What's that
Uh,
second use case?
It's essentially if you move a bit to the right, it's this where like there is some toolbox change on the master that didn't happen due to like when release, right? So then like this box can be triggered both based on the stuff on the left, but also based on something else. So that means that like it has to be like separate.
Okay. Yeah, for me it's if there's a change on master on toolbox, it's going to end up as a tag unless the CI fails, right?
That's again like
There's no approval in between.
right now, yes, I think how we drew it.
Yeah, you're approving van CLI going into toolbox, but when there's a change on master on toolbox, it automatically ends up as tag, and then there's a CI on tag. So there's these three things happening, but there are no additional checks in between.
Yes, yes. The only thing why like it makes sense to like maybe it as steps is that part where if something breaks and you need to retry process from a certain point or to like fix something and continue. So for example, you could like create a tag, and then let's say you're trying to based on tag create a release,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say credentials for that you're using to create a git release are outdated, no longer working, something like that. If the process breaks at that point and everything is tied together and there is no way to like retry just that part, once you fix credentials, then you have to create a new tag. And
But why wouldn't you have rerunnable steps within the stage?
if you have that, then yeah.
Yeah, just for presenting this information and ease of management, I would prefer to have one stage if there are no.
Yeah. I understand. Like it is still like a bit also to me like questionable. What when you create separate stages and when you like create a workflow inside the stage.
Yeah, well, in this use case, it's up to us. So it's kind of like if we had this feature and we were using it, how would you use it here?
Yeah. So this what Dark is drawing is also nice. Like I definitely think that like we would need like some kind of different zoom levels.
Mm.
You are muted, Dark.
Okay. So I don't know if you can draw it just out of our heads. So if I double click on van CLI, this gets expanded. There is van master build, then there is a van tag build, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there is a van release.
There's also a build for tag, no? The CI for tag, right, Damian? Or
Yeah, but it's essentially okay.
But this is okay.
So it's when master produces tag, then when tag produces release, right? And then this
Yeah, those are
last one is update toolbox.
release.
I
You're right. Update toolbox is the, and that's also part of van, right?
Well, it's questionable. It might be part of toolbox.
Yeah, because toolbox is reacting to new release of something else being available. So
It's how you
let me
define the
group this.
stage. This has to be part of when.
Can you maybe go back after you change the color? Go back down. Let's see what we draw yesterday. So
we have
CI
CLI
on
master
master. That
tag,
creates tag.
release, update toolbox, toolbox CL master. Here we committed to master in the here.
Yeah. So
And this got triggered. CI for tag, then release.
yeah. So there is one more box. Then that one update toolbox.
Yeah, because that needs to trigger the next stage.
Yes. Well, that part is also questionable. You can draw it in a different way as well, right? Not really. That's where we discussed yesterday, where like if the toolbox part reacts on Git events and not on the stage, then we would have like we wouldn't need that part where like we are updating toolbox and pushing stuff to master, but we would have disconnected processes.
Yeah, but we want it to react on not on Git events in this instance, but for the when stage to trigger the toolbox.
Yes. But then again, like we could like, let's say if output of this when release, right, could be like URL to GitHub release. And then like the next stage is listening on that, and then based on that release, it updates itself and trigger stuff.
Okay. Okay. So this toolbox thing, in that case, would have one more box at the start, because something needs to change that version of when CLI in toolbox.
Yes.
So in this zoomed in view that Darko is drawing now, which box changes that when CLI version in toolbox?
It would be a new box, like either a new box or like a conditional step on this toolbox master or something like that. Because for toolbox we have two things, right? For when we don't have that issue, but for toolbox we have essentially two triggers. One is there is a new when release that needs to bump the version, and then there is a new build on master. And then there is another case where like we change something inside toolbox, not the when, but whatever, and that creates a new toolbox master build. So if the first step is bumping when version, then that would happen every time when there is a change on master that is not connected to when. So there needs to be some step in between.
Okay. Can we draw that step there? But is it in the toolbox stage, Damian, or in when stage? How would you add it?
I don't think there is a much difference except maybe conceptually, because if it's in toolbox part, then like toolbox manages like how you update toolbox when there is a new version of when, right? This conceptual, like, okay, you can move that string, it can be in this file or that file or whatever. And if it's in when part, then it like when needs to know, and then it's harder. You have to change it there and in toolbox. But it could be also like new version of CLI appears, and so you could parameterize it and say like, okay, whether it's when or artifacts or SPC or whatever, just bump this or that, right? So it might make sense to be in toolbox more.
Darko, what do you think?
Got lost a bit, to be honest. What was the patch that you want to make?
Yeah, so we're not sure in this image that you have currently in the zoomed in view what triggers the toolbox stage when there is a when CLI update. There's this arrow, but it's not clear what, because when release just generates a release. How is the toolbox stage triggered? If we want to have this connection visually, then it needs to trigger based on the outputs of the previous stage, correct?
That's the area where I would maybe. Do we have to understand it fully at this point? Because I mean, yesterday everything was amazing and great. You know how we map this out, but if I would zoom into like events and those outputs, inputs, and events which are triggering things, I'm like unsure. It requires prototyping. That's why there is one approach is to draw how we want the process to look like, on this conceptual level. And then potentially we try to implement it with Sanfor as it is today. I mean, we have tools such as pipelines and promotions. So it should be enough to implement all of this. The main drawback of this approach that we would not have that single control plane that you show you everything across, different stages. So visually, you would not have this great dashboard that we are drawing, but everything else can be implemented. Some things would need to be implemented, some API calls and manually, but we would get a living thing, because now this is like painting, nothing is spinning. I mean that's a big.
Can it
We
be?
need to make that decision. If we want to invest in implementing this with Sanfor as it is today. I mean that would
And would
allow
we
us to. Yeah.
just wanted to say, would you like change the actual like van toolbox and SaaS, or should we like create a three, let's say, dummy projects and dummy repos, and then just connect stuff
I,
to
w-
not break like the existing pipeline?
I mean, I was thinking about working on the real thing, obviously without breaking stuff. Ideally, I don't know how feasible that would be. We'll have to talk about it. So, like creating like a new dummy project, which is this, kind of empty repo where we model all of this.
It's
I mean, again, to go to Damian's questions, maybe even that abstract way would work initially without working with the real things. And then if we see that it's feasible, then we try to pull in the real things. And theoretically speaking, in the coming months, as we are building this, we also have this living thing that we implemented with, duct tape and rope and sticks.
So it would be
Question
functional.
is it worth it? The question is it worth it, and how hard it would be.
that dummy thing with like dummy projects, like that could be built quickly, and that might be worth it. Changing the existing like full projects to like that, like duct tape and stuff, it would require much more investment and like security and other parts, and I don't think that would be worth it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, one way to implement this could be theoretically. So this part here, so van part is implemented in the van repo. This block, and this block. That would lead us back to this this event thing. Who is watching whom? Who is this letting this know by the API? But then this toolbox piece will be implemented in the toolbox repo. So we will connect multiple projects together to get this working. And that investment, I don't think that would be something that, you know, it wouldn't be a thing that we would lose. When we have the CD product fully ready, it would be only about like, okay, let's adopt this, and everything would be nicer, easier, more transparent, you know, and all that. So it would be only an upgrade. So that's one way to implement this.
My only concern with that approach is these events, right? Because what triggers what would be modeled based on current semaphore feature set and not this CD thing. As in, you don't have a toolbox stage that's listening for output of the previous stage in order to trigger.
Yeah,
Yeah, we would have to flip it around and rely on something else, such as, for
Yes.
instance, this guy. Once the uploads to GitHub is done and the binary is on GitHub, there is an API call going out to Toolbox, and maybe this thing has a promotion after it, like in a pipeline, and in that promotion we are committing to master.
Yes.
Yes, it would not reflect the future reality, but it would connect the things. And in future we would only say, okay, do you know that ugly thing that we have here with that additional promotion? We can completely remove it because this thing will be able to listen on a previous one.
But then we're going with that option 2 that Damian was sharing on the previous call, which is stuff is purely triggered by Git events.
I wouldn't assume
It
maybe.
wouldn't be a Git event. It would be an API call, I think. But
No, the issue
it
here would be
be.
like, it would be because we would commit to the to master,
Yeah.
and then
Yes.
like this would have to work for like all commits to master.
Yeah. Yeah. The toolbox is not updating the Ven version in its own repository.
But the van is updating Toolbox.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it could be done in a different way. I mean, listener could be implemented by a worker, which is checking for something every X amount of time. If it's every second, then you think it's listening. If it's every 10 minutes, then, you know. But we could have like a task in Toolbox that would be checking for releases of Van and then saying, hey, I figured out there is a new release of Van. Let me do some work here.
Yeah.
And that would be a fake listener, that recurring task.
But it
which
would be
sounds
closer
pretty
to,
good to me.
Yeah. That would be closer to that final design
Yeah.
that you would have for CD because it's relying on artifacts of the previous stage
Mhm.
and the resource.
Yeah, an artifact would be a Git release in this
Yes.
situation.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yes,
That-
but either way, I think in this like conceptual drawing, we do need some component before this toolbox master, right? Because something needs to create a commit on toolbox master, and then this toolbox master CI happens.
How do we do it here?
We have this box after Van release and before the toolbox master. So there is this
this one.
toolbox box. Yes, that box.
Clear. Okay, I completely forgot about that, and I think you pointed it out, but I don't understand. So, prior to this,
Yes.
where should I put it?
That's the thing that Alex and I briefly discussed. It makes more sense in this, like, especially if it's like listening on events, to be inside the toolbox or sensor, right? The component that listens for a new version and then updates itself in whatever way, like, it considers correct, right? Because otherwise, like, conceptually it's breaking stuff because like Van needs to know precisely what to change in toolbox in order for
Yeah, that direction is in the long run. That's definitely not something that is worth
But
it.
this is a deployment stage. You need the previous one, I think, no? It just says toolbox here, but it's not. This is
Yeah.
SaaS
Oh,
and agent.
sorry. Yeah, sorry, I mixed things up. Yes, all
Yeah.
right, thanks. So this needs to move a bit for now. This, right?
Yes, and that would be bump version or update.
Okay, cool. So Damian, how this can be implemented today. So this is obviously CI pipeline, all clear. Then there is a promotion, which is doing tagging.
Yeah, which creates a tag.
Essentially, creates a version, essentially. So same version, yeah, semantic versioning kind of a thing happens here. And then once that builds, a release on GitHub is created.
And that happens in a new workflow that is triggered by tag, right? The first two currently
Yeah.
would happen on like master commit.
Yeah. Yeah, so this can be a separate pipeline, right there. Okay.
Yeah, you could model this in either way. If there are no checks in between, then it can be a single workflow with chained pipelines. If not, it could be separate workflows even.
What
Yeah.
do like you mean in CD or like currently in like if you would to model this currently in some?
In the project, in the CI product, no CI.
Okay, in the CI project, I think at least how we are doing it right now, this release part happens on like that tag workflow. So the workflow started when the tag is created. So it's a different workflow.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm not completely sure if that's really necessary, but yeah.
And what about the release gets created by the tag CI workflow?
Yes, and
Okay.
like
But it's a separate pipeline in that workflow.
yeah, it's one pipeline in that or I think we did have like CI and then
Yeah. So in this example, you have one workflow, which is CI when master, and then you have another workflow, which is when tag, that has two pipelines. So
yes, but like yeah. And then the thing that we are actually missing here when I'm looking in this is like that part that creates the tag, right? It's like it can be in this CI when master because
and thing that creates a tag is just a new pipeline or a job in the master workflow.
it can be right now we don't have that automated. Right now you create it manually, but like we could create like let's say we could have a file in van and when like if you merge to master and there is a change to that file that like changes the version, right? Then like it triggers like promotion based on changing and reads that version and creates tag with that version. Yeah.
So essentially, did I understand correctly? So master is green on one CLI,
Yes.
and then we could say if master and then past, then tag, and that can be a promotion. Can be separate
Yeah.
pipeline in a promotion. Can be post pipeline job. I mean, can be
Yeah. Yeah.
even that job which executed the tests and then okay, all tests are green. Then
There are various ways like we can trigger that. The one thing that would be still good is like to have the option to like merge something to master and not create tag straight away, in case like we need to do some reverts or like several merges or stuff, right?
in where or everywhere? Are you referring to one specifically or
Well,
toolbox
to
or?
when like it's like that's also questionable. Like we could say like that there is a way around that. Like it's more for a convenience thing. Like let's say if we have to create two, if we have to merge two things, we could merge them first on another branch and then create a pull request that like pushes everything together and like just have the commits that are so every commit on master is creating a tag. It's it's a policy thing more, I think.
Yeah. If we come back here, what's the status here?
And so at least for now, maybe it makes sense to like at least leave the box is empty in this as an agent. We didn't discuss like it definitely wouldn't be toolbox, but yeah.
You mean like this, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. What could we add here to make the picture more complete? Except for van, we could include another CLI. That's one option.
Yes. Then we could also draw out what happens like if toolbox changes like on its own and basically.
And here the situation is pretty simple. And Alex, your question was?
No, here everything is clear for this flow. And if we model this in Semaphore, we would have a task that would listen for artifacts, and that's it. So I agree with Damian. It would be nice to just check now how would this work if there's a direct change in toolbox itself.
What would be the example of that? I mean, there are CLIs that are actually bash scripts that are living inside of Toolbox.
Yeah.
Some version.
Yeah. Also, cache is inside the toolbox. I think cache CLI. That is a binary, but
Yeah, but cache should have this process in place, right?
I think we don't have a separate like version for it. Like everything that is toolbox is versioned with toolbox. It's not versioned like.
Yeah, but
its own.
point being that same version. What was the example I gave previously?
It was okay. There is let's say checkout and stuff like that, right? Checkout. Then there is that some context, whatever is the name. Semantic version.
So the point here is that this toolbox could be starting even without anything happening here. I mean, in practice today, is it a good
Yes.
idea or not? Or, that's another thing. But what else can trigger this toolbox is what do we have here?
So it would be changing checkout, let's say, logic in toolbox.
It's so annoying that for those nodes, it always sets the text size to automatic. And
At least it's making it more.
and that change happens on master, no?
That change happens through pull request and then it's merged into master. Yes.
But on the CD side of things, we don't really care about pull request CI checks now.
Well, yeah, there is a potential like issue here because like these two things live in like compete for the same resource that is master, right? So if you would want to update version of van in toolbox, that would result in like commit to master, and at the same time you might be committing from merging
Pull
pull
request.
request. Yeah, like Git can resolve that, but yeah.
How would that impact the pipeline?
Well, I don't think it would impact it directly, right? It would just so
I mean,
what would happen is that this CI toolbox master would have to listen to commits on master, right? As well as output of update version of toolbox of van in
I
toolbox.
mean this, right?
Yes.
So direct commits to
Or direct or to pull request, but yeah. Just a new commit on master.
And in that case, this whole stage would start.
Yeah.
I mean, whole.
The toolbox, well,
Maybe not the first one.
Not the first one, but the second one would start.
yeah.
I think it still works, right? Because
Works.
you would just have here like two things that are triggering it, but yeah.
But if you have a new commit on master on the toolbox, don't you still need to update the version?
Yes, you do need like a new version of toolbox and tag and release. Yes.
So when does that happen in this case?
Well, everything stays the same. Essentially, we just skip this first block of updating van, right? So like if you make some changes to toolbox right now, in the stuff that is in toolbox, you merge it to master, you create a new tag, you create a new release based on that tag, and then like those changes could be used.
Yeah, but is the user that's making a commit on master branch responsible for updating the toolbox version in the file? And is this pipeline?
No, that there is no toolbox version inside toolbox file in the same way there is van, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least right now, how it works, this part essentially works the same way as when works over there. So like you merge something into the repo, this CI master passes, then you create a tag based on that top of the master, and then tag based on tag, it creates a release. And like when you create a tag, you currently specify like, okay, this is my Germain or patch version bump. So like you create a tag with a new, like we have a makefile commands that like essentially pulls the latest version and then like updates specific semantic point that you say,
Okay.
and then creates a new tag. Yeah.
But if you're automatically creating tags, you would need to figure out to see. Okay, I get it now.
Yeah. Yeah, but that is a good question. Like if we are creating like this, if we are storing that inside the repo, then I would say like this merge to master would also need to bump the version of toolbox inside the file. So
Yes.
in that pull request, you would like make a change to that checkout, and you would bump the version of toolbox itself to whatever number, and then this toolbox tag would be created with that number that you said inside the file.
Okay, and there are no changes in master that don't result in the version update.
That should be
Yeah,
correct.
that should be a policy.
Yeah. We have to wrap up. Have another meeting.
Okay. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, I guess we'll leave it here. We just continue.
Okay.
Without
I would
major
have
decision on the next step.
I would have a question for the next one, which is, you know, what if I commit to master and don't update the version? Is the tag going to be automatically built with the same as with the previous version? Is it going to fail or? But
But that's about versioning. That's about automatic versioning and so on.
Yes.
Yeah, we can check for that and fail the process. It's like there. Yeah. Well, what I will do for the next one is I will gather a bit of information about these SaaS and agents, how it looks currently, at least conceptually, and then that we can throw it out on the right.
Or we get a guest on the call, someone from platform team.
Yeah, that's also an option.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.